shut down. The Vatican and St. Peter's Basilica are closed as the Italian government takes drastic measures to try and fight the coronavirus. We have a report from Rome. We're also at the White House, where the Trump administration announces measures to combat the outbreak in the United States. Make or break. Voters head to the polls today in 6 states, why one of them is crucial to Bernie Sanders. And a final chance. An update on Cardinal George Pell and his appeal before Australia's highest court. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, March 10th, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Financial markets rebounded today despite ongoing concerns about the coronavirus. The White House is also getting more involved. It is proposing a break for taxpayers and securing a promise from insurance executives to help their customers. We have team coverage this evening, including the COVID-19 response on Capitol Hill with correspondent Eric Rosales. But we start now with correspondent Owen Jensen at the White House. Owen?
Tracy, the coronavirus has infected more than 700 people in the United States. And if you're worried about paying for a test for the virus, well, insurance company executives are making this promise here at the White House.
We want the American people to know that they are covered.
At the White House, health insurance giants agreeing to waive all co-pays for coronavirus testing and no surprise billing. On top of that, help in getting the word out about how to stay safe.
Because as you've said, Mr. President, while the risk to the average American of contracting the coronavirus remains low, we want a full partnership with industry and give the American people all the information they need to avoid contracting or spreading the coronavirus.
Getting ready to board a plane to Orlando.
In the meantime, the economic fallout growing. Airlines continuing to slash capacity as travelers cancel flights. Delta Airlines announced a hiring freeze. And the Seattle area, usually busy downtown streets, are empty after Amazon and other companies told tens of thousands of people to work from home. Meanwhile, the president now looking at possible payroll tax relief, loans for small businesses, and assistance for hourly wage earners, and helping the airlines and cruise industries.
But they're spending a lot of money, and they are working very hard, and we're going to be helping that industry. Likewise with the airline industry, they're taking very, very strong steps for people coming into our country, even getting off the planes. So we are working very closely with them. We're helping them. They're two great industries, and we'll be helping them through this patch.
And it's not just private industry impacted. Even Securities and Exchange Commission employees have been told to work remotely after a coronavirus scare at the agency's Washington headquarters. Now, the White House Coronavirus Task Force has come up with a guide to protect offices and homes and schools from the virus. You can go to coronavirus.gov for more details. And by the way, at the top of the list, not shaking hands. Tracy?
Thank you, Owen. Correspondent Owen Jensen reporting for us tonight from the White House. Thank you again, Owen. Well, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says that Congress should stay at work this week as captains of the ship. That is despite the risk of the coronavirus on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers are scrambling to respond to the disease. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales continues our coverage. Eric.
Well, Tracy, congressional Democrats, they're pushing a plan to counter President Trump's proposals. These Democrats, they want to come up with an idea package, an aid package, so that these working families will be able to have some income if their jobs are affected by the coronavirus. Meanwhile, Republicans on Capitol Hill, they defend the work of the White House.
The president has put the CDC, NIH in meetings from the very beginning and the military as early back as January. You've watched the president's administration come to this Capitol as early in January to prep and brief the entire Congress and Senate about the coronavirus and what was coming. He's taken this very serious from day one.
Republican leader Kevin McCarthy says Democrats were too focused on impeachment to see preparations were being made. The Senate Minority Leader shoots back.
One word describes the Trump administration's response to the coronavirus so far: incompetence. The political appointees are the ones who seem not to get it and are putting politics over the safety and security of the American people. And it goes right to the top.
In the House and Senate, contingency plans are underway. A so-called Genius Bar is set up in a House cafeteria for staffers to get their laptops and other electronics updated in the event that they must telecommute and work from home, as House Speaker Nancy Pelosi brushes off calls to close the Capitol.
At this time, there is no reason to do so.
The Senate Majority Leader assures Americans the country is prepared.
This virus does not care about partisan divisions. This disease poses a challenge, no question. But our nation is strong, we are well equipped, and we have overcome far, far greater challenges before.
Both sides are working on their plan right now. They include such items as paid sick leave for those who are out of work, and also free testing kits for those in need of a coronavirus test. Tracy?
Thank you, Eric. Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting from Capitol Hill. And joining me now to take a look at the impact the coronavirus is having on the economy here and abroad is Rachel Bovard. She is Senior Director of Policy at the Conservative Partnership Institute. Rachel, welcome back. So the coronavirus, it isn't just a health issue now. It's really impacting the global economy. Do you think, in your opinion, are we on the verge of a global recession?
I don't think we are yet. I think it's too early to say. We're certainly seeing some market fluctuations, some downturns, some upturns, and that's to be expected, right? I mean, this is affecting the entertainment industry, travel. All of that is about 7% of the U.S. GDP. And so when people cut back on that, it takes an economic hit. But in terms of the long-term sustained impact, it's just too soon to tell.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to continue this volatility in the stock market?
I do think so, until the market sort of reorganizes itself around what is this response. It's going to depend on what the government does. If there's containment measures taken, if there's policy measures taken, the market will respond to that, because it's all about confidence, right? If the market has confidence in the government, if the government has confidence in the people, we're all going to be okay.
Do you think people should panic?
I don't think it's time to panic. I think caution is always a good, prudent measure to take, right? Wash your hands, don't touch your face, stay as far away from each other as we are, and don't go to work if you're sick. Stay home if you're sick.
The Federal Reserve cut interest rates last week, but that did little to calm the fears in the markets right now. What do you make of the proposed payroll tax cut, and do you think that's going to have an impact?
Well, it doesn't seem to be getting much traction on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers seem to dismiss it out of hand. I do think that would be a longer-term measure than where we are right now. If this virus continues to spread over months, if we do see supply chain issues, we aren't able to produce certain medications or goods, then I think it's going to be time for a sustained policy response. But again, I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah. Another idea that I know you know about that was floated is the expansion of paid sick leave. What do you make of that, and how would that work if implemented?
It's going to be very important for people to be able to stay home if they're sick. I tend to think a lot of this will be done voluntarily at first by some of these companies who are going to urge their employees to stay home because nobody wants to spread this. But as far as it being mandated from the government, that's something I think the White House is going to talk about, but there's no specific plan to do it yet.
You had mentioned a lot of industries that are being impacted by the coronavirus and maybe some relief that's needed for those industries. Do you think that we're going to have, maybe have some bailouts coming like we did with the financial crisis?
Yeah, it's certainly being discussed because, again, it's not clear if some of these entertainment or the airline industry can survive a long-term sustained outbreak of coronavirus. But again, this is a longer-term measure. If we can get this virus contained by the summer, viruses don't necessarily like warm weather, then we may be in a situation where the economy can rebound just all by itself.
Okay, great advice. Thank you so much, Rachel. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And today, the Italian police closed St. Peter's Square. This follows the Italian government calling for a nationwide quarantine. People can leave their houses, but only in cases of emergency, necessity, or medical reasons. However, in doing so, people must respect a 1-meter distance from others. Grocery stores are limiting the amount of people who can shop at one time. Restaurants and bars must close at 6 p.m., and gathering in groups is forbidden. All of these measures are being enforced until April 3rd. Joining us now is Alan Holdren, EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief, and he is coming to us from his home in Rome. Welcome, Alan.
Welcome to my home, Tracy.
Well, I know the Vatican City is a separate state from Italy, but it is being forced to go on lockdown. Tell us why that is, and how is the Vatican dealing with these precautionary measures?
Well, the Vatican is going on lockdown, so to speak, because of the same reasons that Italy is going on lockdown, trying to contain the infections. And so a lot of the people that work in Vatican City come from Italy. They don't live within Vatican City. And so they'll be coming and going, and obviously that's a concern. The lockdown isn't complete in the Vatican, I should say. They are taking measures, but they haven't, say, closed the offices.
Yeah, Alan, can you tell us, as our EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief, how's your life changing, your work life, and local businesses around there too?
Yeah, well, we've pretty much suspended in-office activity. We work remotely at this point, each one of us in our respective homes. Obviously, that comes with certain limits, so we won't be able to provide, say, custom shoots out in the field at this point. That's why I'm here with you right now from my home. But that actually, we're doing our part to contribute to containing this, and we obviously want to keep bringing information from Rome here to all of you.
Absolutely, Alan. I heard a little voice in the background there. We know that you're a dad of 4 and a husband. How has life changed for you as a family, and are you guys doing anything differently now?
Yeah, I mean, we are basically homeschooling at this point, which there are certain people that can do that. We've not tried that previously. It takes a little bit of discipline here and just keeping to a schedule. The kids are receiving homework from their school, which has been suspended. In-class work has been suspended until April the 3rd. We're trying to keep up with that. The teacher, actually a 4th grade teacher, asked for pictures today of the homework to make sure that it had been done. So we're keeping up with it. We've got some stockpiles of food here. We can go outside. We can go and get things one person at a time. We can go to the supermarkets. So it's not a huge concern at this point whether or not we'll have supplies. It's just maintaining a safe distance is being asked of us.
Alan, we don't have much time, but I do want to ask you this. Do you think that Italy will recover from this crisis, and how do you think they'll recover?
Italy has recovered from repeated crises over the centuries, the last major one being World War II. We still have people telling us stories about that. So I've no doubt that the ingenuity of the Italian people will lead to a bounce back from this as soon as we're able. But it won't be without a certain price to pay, which unfortunately right now the economic situation is not being helped by this.
Yeah, well, Alan, thank you so much for joining us from your home there in Rome. Alan Holdren, EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief. Thanks again.
Thank you, Tracy.
Coming up, why today's Michigan primary is so important to Bernie Sanders, and how Catholics in the Mitten State are viewing the race for the White House. Voters in 6 states will cast their ballots today in the Democratic race for president. It marks the first round of voting since the field narrowed to 2 major candidates, former Vice President Joe Biden and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. A total of 352 delegates are up for grabs today in the states of Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, Idaho, and Washington. The biggest prize of today's contest is Michigan, with 125 delegates. Philip Crowther, international affiliate reporter for the Associated Press, joins me now from Detroit. Philip, welcome back. So Joe Biden goes in today expecting a strong showing, especially there in Michigan. Do you think he'll get that support?
It does look like it, according to the latest polls, at least. Of course, we always have to be a little bit careful with those polls, be it national or statewide polls. But here in Michigan, what the former vice president is looking for is a major turnaround, a big advantage, first of all, here in Michigan, a big difference between him and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, but then also that really big change compared to what happened in 2016, because here in Michigan, we have to look back at the history of the vote. Because first of all, in the primaries here between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, back in the day, Bernie Sanders won against Hillary Clinton. There was too much suspicion of the former Secretary of State, and she lost here surprisingly. That is the big turnaround that the former Vice President Joe Biden wants to produce here. Of course, also a reason why we're looking closely at Michigan is because this is one of those crucial states that made Donald Trump president in the first place in 2016. One of those industrial Midwestern states where he sprung that surprise. That is also the type of momentum that Joe Biden wants to get behind him. He has got the momentum right now, of course, because he won in South Carolina Carolina, and after that things went so well for him on Super Tuesday that we expect more of the same essentially from him. Certainly here in Michigan, not necessarily in all of the states that are voting today, but in most of them.
Well, Philip, this is really a pivotal moment for the Sanders campaign. What will it take for him to catch Biden's lead?
Well, it's almost a make-or-break moment for the Vermont senator. It would be another really big upset if he was to win here against the man who certainly Bernie Sanders would call the establishment favorite. Bernie Sanders has been campaigning hard here in Michigan over the last few days during a time when the former Vice President, Joe Biden, felt pretty confident that he was going to get the win here, and so he moved on to other states that might be voting today as well or next Tuesday. But Bernie Sanders has really gone for it here and has criticized Joe Biden for his past record on trade, for example, for being a member of the establishment. So this truly is the state that Bernie Sanders will want to win here today. It's not necessarily a Super Tuesday, by the way, but a lot of important states are voting here. A lot of people are calling this a big Tuesday. It certainly is an important moment in the primary race.
Well, I know voter turnout really is going to be key there. What are you keeping your eye on? Is it the young voters, African-American voters, unions?
Well, look, there's a reason why we're here in this community college here in Detroit. As you can see behind me, it is largely African-American voters here who, first of all, largely vote for the Democratic Party. We always have to remind you that in most states, there is also a Republican primary going on, and there is one here. Not a lot of voters here coming out for Donald Trump or his opponents here on the Republican ticket, though. But on the Democratic side, of course, what we're looking to find out here is whether Joe Biden can get that support from the African-American community here in Michigan that he was also able to get in South Carolina, which then, of course, gave him the momentum to come away with those big wins in the South again on Super Tuesday. What Joe Biden really here is trying to get is a new type of electorate, if you will, African-American communities in the industrial Midwest, but also working-class white voters, for example. Joe Biden was at a auto workers plant earlier today trying to get votes there. Those are some of the crucial demographics that we are looking into here in Michigan that will truly decide who comes away with the win here. Again, the favorite to win this primary here in Michigan on the Democratic side is the former Vice President Joe Biden.
Well, Philip, thank you so much for your analysis. Philip Crowther, international affiliate reporter for the Associated Press. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as Philip mentioned, Michigan is a key state in voting today. Correspondent Mark Irons spoke to the Bishop of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and other Catholics. Mark?
Tracy, Grand Rapids is in Kent County. It's considered by some to be one of the top counties to keep an eye on in the upcoming presidential election. Now, I'm standing in front of the Cathedral of St. Andrew. Today we spoke to the Bishop of Grand Rapids. He had a message for his Catholic flock, casting ballots on this crucial voting ground.
I'd say go out and vote, that's for sure.
Bishop David Wolkowiak, who heads the Diocese of Grand Rapids, weighing in on Decision Day.
Vote. It's important to for many people to get out as possible so that the people can express their will on who they want their candidates to be.
While there is a Republican primary today in Michigan, the main focus in this delegate-rich state is on the Democratic race.
Michigan, I'm counting on you in a big way.
On Tuesday, let's win here in Michigan.
Votes for Sanders and Biden cast in polling places like the one set up at St. Isidore Parish Hall.
It was important to vote for Joe Biden because I believe he is working there for the working class and helping a lot of people who are struggling, especially here in the Midwest.
Before sunrise, people began voting in this parish hall at the same time as daily mass at St. Isidore Church took place next door. This parishioner told us about the main issue on his mind when he votes.
So the life issues to me, family, starting with the unborn, that is something that we have to get resolved in this country.
According to the latest EWTN Real Clear Opinion Research poll, only 47% of U.S. Catholics believe abortion is intrinsically evil. The Church teaches an intrinsic evil is an act that is always immoral regardless of intention or circumstances. Bishop Wolkowiak tells us Catholics are not single-issue voters, but things like abortion, euthanasia, and embryonic stem cell research are all considered intrinsic evils.
So we look to those issues. I mean, the one that it comes to mind immediately, it should for every Catholic voter, is the unjust taking of innocent human life in abortion.
Tracy, it's a beautiful day here in Grand Rapids. The polls are open for just a couple more hours, but again, Kent County is a critical place both parties want to capture in this battleground state of Michigan. To give you an idea of how important it is, President Trump spoke here on the eve of his 2016 election before becoming president. In Grand Rapids, Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
Up next, Australia's High Court is set to hear the appeal of the most senior Catholic clergy member to be found guilty of child sexual abuse. The United States military says that it has begun withdrawing troops from Afghanistan. It is a step forward in the Trump administration's peace deal with the Taliban. Next in the process, talks among all factions in the country, including the Taliban. But it may not be as smooth as it sounds. There is a controversy over who is Afghanistan's president. The leaders of the rival groups have each been sworn in. Sitting President Ashraf Ghani has been declared the winner of an election last September, but Ghani's former partner in the government says the results were a fraud, and he has declared himself the winner. The two are refusing to meet and settle their differences. Work has begun on a Christian non-denominational cathedral in the capital of Ghana. The foundation-laying ceremony was held late last week. Religious and government authorities were in attendance. The West African country is roughly 15% Catholic. Australia's highest court is set to hear the appeal of the most senior Catholic clergy member convicted of child sexual abuse. Cardinal George Pell's case begins tomorrow and is expected to last for 2 days. This is potentially the final chance for Cardinal Pell to clear his name. Last year, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. The 78-year-old is expected to argue that the guilty verdicts were unreasonable and could not be supported by the whole of the evidence. Thousands of pro-lifers attended a mass on Sunday in Argentina. The theme was Yes to Women, Yes to Life. The country's president is currently deciding whether to sign a measure that would legalize abortion. Right now, the country allows abortion only if the mother's life or health is in danger or in cases of rape. Argentina has a large Catholic population. And finally tonight, Rome is under a quarantine, but that did not stop Pope Francis from celebrating Mass. The Holy Father told the faithful to always remember that on top of going to confession, they can also talk to the Lord about their sins. The Holy Father suggests we confess our sins not only with our minds, but also with our hearts. And he encouraged Christians to not be afraid of their misery and to not cover up the truth when discussing their sins. Pope Francis also weighed in on the coronavirus, saying despite the quarantine, he hopes that priests will have the courage to go out and bring the Eucharist to those who are sick. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. We're back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night and God bless.